Fantasy and Some Flights, exploring the realms of beer, board games, books, and bourbon.
Welcome to another episode of the Fantasy and Some Flights podcast. I'm Nelson.
I'm Dalton.
And tonight we are coming at you with a book episode talking all about fight scenes or battle scenes. So I'm really excited because these are super hype, right?
Right. That's the whole point. Yeah.
You know, the action kind of, the climax. A lot of these happen at climaxes. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how we do this with spoilers. So we'll have to figure that out.
Yeah. Halfway through the episode, Nelson and I are going to exchange blows. We're going to throw on some boxing gloves and
wait, you got gloves? I was not aware of this requirement.
Apparently I need more to drink then.
So random side tangent because, we're always good at keeping these episodes short. My brother went to a bachelor party where he did, I think it was called chess boxing. And so it combined chess with if you lost a piece, you had a boxing match, and it was supposed to stimulate both the physical and the mental parts of your body. And I'm just that just sounds so what? Okay. It sounds awesome, but not something I would ever do.
Can you just become a master of one and just not die in the other,
Yeah. I'm just a really good boxer. I don't even know the rules of chess, so we'll see how this goes.
Right. I just keep moving pawns around and hoping.
Oh, okay. Well, now that side tangent is over, we are drinking. So, Dalton, what's on your flight tonight?
What's on my flight? We were talking about in the Fireside episode we just released that we both have a Four Cheers
I'm excited for this.
Drink tonight. So I have a Four Cheers. It is Sunrise Sensei Black IPA from Denver Brewing Company.
An IPA?
A black IPA.
It's happening.
Looking at it,
IPA.
I can show it to you on the camera. Can you tell it's an IPA?
That's a stout.
It is not one bit black. It is, or not one bit brown. It's fully black. But so this beer, again, I just picked it up at a local store. I wanted to try local beer, and so I just picked it up. And as after I picked it up, I tried. I was like, wow, I really like this. And I looked at the back, and it has a really special story. And so apparently the head brewer, I don't know the story of what happened, but apparently the head brewer of Denver Beer Company passed away in the fall of last year. And they actually made this. I know it is. I don't really know what happened, but they made this beer kind of in memorial. So I thought that was a really cool way to kind of honor his memory and everything. So they brewed this black IPA. They used Rosita de Cacao, which is a Mexican flower, apparently. I don't know if that's tied to his heritage or whatever, but no.
I thought we covered that. I thought we covered that in the beer episode.
Right. Black IPAs are just, first of all, super interesting. Where they have some of the flowery and hoppy flavors of IPA, but then they have this from the roasting of the malt, they have this really strong, these strong bitter and coffee flavors and everything. So we've talked about IPAs are trying to become more balanced. This one doesn't necessarily feel that way, right? Because it's kind of doubling a little bit
towards the malty side.
Just more towards the roasted coffee type flavors.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of backing up.
Interesting.
With just more bitter,
Oh, okay. Interesting.
But I have tried black IPAs before and always really liked them. I don't know why. I think just the complexity, and they end up tasting just an unsweet stout almost to me. So the beer itself is really good, but I thought it also just had a really special story. I'm sure it would be getting harder and harder to release because I think they're just doing, it was just a one-time release of it type of thing. But the can is also just really pretty. It has sort of I don't know how to describe it, but an outline of an owl that's done really well with a sunset behind it. And you can just tell they really put a lot of
really
memory
pretty.
in. Yeah, for sure. Just that they put a lot of thought
and
really
attention
into the beer. So it's a bit of a sad story, obviously. And again, not knowing the details of it, but I thought it was just a really special way to to send off a friend and a coworker like that. So we didn't know Jason Bueller, but now we've tasted this beer and we know a little bit about him from that. So I thought that was kind of a cool way to make sure that his memory kind of, I think if I had a choice, that would be a really cool way to be remembered. So
yeah, wow, that's powerful. Mm-hmm. So you said it was a Four Cheers.
Yeah.
Yep. What is the APV on it? Does it hit you pretty hard?
It is. It doesn't hit super hard. It's 6.3%.
Okay. So there in that IPA normal range.
Yeah, normal IPA range. It also says on the can, just another fun fact, that it's made with 100% solar power. I thought that was pretty badass. It's good for you guys.
That is really cool.
Yeah. I don't know if that's all their beer. Again, like I'm pretty new to the Denver area. I'm learning a lot about the breweries here, but thought that was a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, that would be a really cool brewery to go visit.
Yeah, for sure.
Like they're set up on like sustainable energy. I think that'd be just really cool to go visit and patronize. No, patronize. It's not patronize.
Go and patronize. Oh, look who's on solar power.
Oh, look at me. Support.
Yeah, support. Offer your patronage.
Offer your patronage. Yeah. Man, English is such a messed up language.
No. It's English's fault, not ours.
Yeah. It's not. Yeah. Well, nice.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you like it. I'm glad
Absolutely.
you found the Four Cheers IPA. That makes me very happy.
Right. Turns out all you have to do is roast the malts, and then I like it better.
Huh. Weird.
But what about you? What are you drinking tonight?
So I also teased that I am drinking a Four Cheers whiskey. So this whiskey was the whiskey that I cold called you on the Friday before I came up to visit you, saying, "Hey, I want a whiskey."
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I want a whiskey to share over this weekend right before you move. Which one should I pick up? And you came in clutch with the idea of the Michter's Straight Rye. This is a single barrel straight rye that Michter's had, and we've had Michter's before, but I think it was the bourbon.
We did, yeah. We had their bourbon.
Right, we had their bourbon, which was still really good, but this rye is phenomenal. I really like it. It's like 42, almost 43% alcohol content, and no water, no ice is needed. I mean, it's smooth. It has a very complex flavor profile. It's rye, so I'm getting pepper, right? So just like any rye would. But then like it has some sweet notes as in there as well, and it almost feels like cherry. Like I don't know if you tasted that when you were having it, but when I taste it, it feels like an alcoholic cherry Coke almost. Like it's not that sweet, but
Right.
like, it feels like that. Like you kind of fermented cherry Coke, which I just thought was really good. 4 Cheers for me easily. This one is actually Taco Templeton for me. This is my rye of choice at this point.
Wow.
I
look
like
at
this
you.
more than the Templeton. So that has happened.
That's awesome.
We are there. This is my favorite whiskey right now. So
That's awesome.
This is my favorite whiskey I've ever had. So I always have a barrel. So just like our 4 Cheers rating, we were always going to have some in the house. So
Yeah.
I had this. I bought some. I brought it down to one of our listeners, one of our friends, Amram's house. We drank that over the weekend. I'm just having a lot of fun with this rye.
That's good. I think you said in there that you always have a barrel, and I at first I was like, oh, he misspoke, and then I was like, but did he?
Yes. Sorry, no, I have not yet financed my way to a barrel of this. It's actually not too bad. It is under $40.
Okay.
So that's always really nice. I think it was right around 38 at the store that I went to. So
Yeah,
it's
that's
not going to break the bank.
For me, that's like kind of capping out something that I can buy like often,
Right. Yeah.
Like if it's like getting to 50, it's like, okay, this is for me personally starting to get to where it's like kind of a special thing. Like I don't want to just always be buying this bottle and drinking it. So
Yep, and this one is, I'm not drinking this all night, right? So I'm going to have 1 or 2 of these and then switch to an Elijah Craig or a Templeton or something like that. So, I mean, it does last me a while, so
that's good.
I am happy and I am very excited that you called out Michter's Straight Rye for our bourbon, or not our bourbon, our whiskey of choice that weekend. It has changed my life.
That's good. Wow. Especially because like I wasn't like, it was like, oh, I've heard the rye is good. Like we had the bourbon and I liked it. Like maybe pick that up and see if it's good. Like it wasn't like I've had this, you're really gonna like it. It's like you like rye. This was a good one. Well, let's try it and see if it's good. So that's really funny that you. Yep. I'm really glad that you liked it so
great
much.
choice.
That's awesome. You mentioned like a cherry and a cola flavor. I see in like reviews a lot. I see cola described as like a taste in whiskeys. I think it's probably coming from like the oak barreling that has a lot of vanilla in it, and it like that kind of reminds you of like that Coke, Coca-Cola type flavor. But then like cherry, like dark cherry, like I think comes out most often either in like something that's been barreled in like a finishing barrel, like a sherry or something. Then it can have like a or a red wine, then it can kind of have like a dark berry skin type of flavor. But specifically rye, every once in a while there's a rye that comes across with like a subtle like dark cherry flavor, and it's always really good.
Yeah, I really like the contrast between the peppery, like the spicy, and then the sweet. It really does stuff for my palate.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Glad you like it so much.
So 2-4 cheers. That's super exciting. That's always the sign of a good episode, right?
That's right. 8 total cheers this episode.
Wow, that's a lot of cheers.
I know. 9 if you count the one at the end.
Oh, yes. Oh, wow. Yeah. I may just throw a random one in here, see if you can catch it.
That's right. That's right. Get those double digits going.
Hey, we did hit 10 YouTube subscribers.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, was that you?
Yeah, it was me.
Okay. I would like to personally thank you for
you're so
subscribing to our YouTube. I told you that I would do this to the person that made us get to 10 subscribers. And thank you, Mr. Dalton Lentz.
You're welcome.
So much for hitting bringing us up to that top tier, the echelon of YouTube subscribers with double digits. It's really a
I like
great
to
deal.
consider myself if a YouTube channel has more than 11 subscribers, then I'm just kind of like, it's too mainstream.
It's too big.
It's too big.
They're never gonna like interact with you. They just got too
Right.
much going on.
Right. Too many
They have to
people
deal with
smash
the
that subscribe.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
Oh man.
yeah, if another person subscribes, then I might drop out. But for now, yeah, I'm really enjoying the Fantasy and Some Flights YouTube channel. It's got
Good
stuff.
Yeah. You've been doing a lot of moving and unpacking. Have you had any chance to read or listen to anything in that time?
Yeah. We always talk about when we get busy, we tend to fall back on easier reads. And so I talked in a couple Fireside episodes about rereading the Inheritance cycle. I did finish that out kind of like
nice.
right as like our move was kind of like right as we were kind of leaving Indiana. I think I'd kind of finished that out. And so did really enjoy the reread, picked up on a lot of stuff that I had missed since high school, approached it with a bit more of like a critical eye, I think, because like just basically because we've been doing this and because I'm a more experienced reader and because it is a very young adult series, that it has a lot of great elements to it, but there are some things that it's kind of like lacking on. And so it was kind of a good exercise for me to like think critically about it and be like, yes, this is recognized. Like, yes, this is still something that I really, really enjoy. It has a lot of nostalgia for me. Has a very personal connection, but also being able to be like a little bit critical of it, So I think that might come up. I think maybe even a little bit tonight. We'll see if it comes up tonight. But just even going forward into other book episodes is probably something that I'll draw from more frequently because it is like something that I have reread recently. Would still like obviously recommend the series. I think it's a very enjoyable read, but you have to go into it as an adult now, understanding that it was written by a very young author and it's intended for a very young audience, and so like it has some flaws. Good things can have flaws, just like you and me. So.
And one of the things that you just said, where you picked up on more things during the reread, that is also something that I did, which I thought was really interesting and really clever, especially for a young author, to have like those little details that kind of play a bigger role later in the series.
Yeah, for
which
sure.
I just thought was really cool. So I don't know if we've talked about it on the podcast, but do you enjoy the ending of that series? Like, don't spoil it, but like, I know it's a controversial ending, and so I'm curious to hear your take on it. Do you enjoy the ending of
Inheritance,
right?
is the last one.
Yeah,
It's the
that's
Inheritance
the last
cycle,
book,
and the
yeah.
last one's called Inheritance. Yes, I think it drags. Like I had forgotten, honestly. Like I finished the book, well, I was reading the book, and like the climax happens, and I was like, oh, okay, cool, and we were like driving still, because we had just left Indiana, and I was like, there's like 5 hours left in this book. I mean, like a long time.
It's like Return of the King.
Yeah, it's like Return of the King, where it's like the story is just like taking forever to like finish. It has this very, very long falling action and like conclusion. And I think part of that is I think he's probably trying to wrap up like too many storylines. Like it felt like everybody got a conclusion to the storyline, but like a chapter that like was written and was like very active, like things were happening, and it like took a long time for like each individual storyline to like wrap up. So like I didn't like that part of the ending. I was like, okay, I think this whole section could just be cut. Like I don't really think I need this character's like resolution as a part of like the series ending.
Yeah.
But in terms of the way that the climax is done, and then like some of his decisions in the falling action that are like the major plot points of the falling action, I do enjoy, and I kind of agree with. They are a little different. It's a bit of a different take.
It is a bit of a different take, and I'm right there with you. I think I do enjoy the ending. Yeah, and he kind of left it open-ended so that I feel like he could expand on the universe if he wanted to. And I think there were rumors, maybe like in the last year or two, that he had plans to do that. Have you seen anything about that?
Yes. So when I was kind of like, as I was finishing the story, I was like kind of just like looking stuff up and just like reading or whatever. And I wasn't aware, but there was a book that came out at the end of 2018 that was a collection of short stories.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. It's called The Lion, the Witch, and the Worm. No, it's called The Fork, the Witch, and the Worm. But it's
So
The Fork, the Witch, and the
Poloni's
Worm.
plagiarizing again.
Yes, here we go. Here I go plagiarizing.
So I started plagiarizing.
So I started plagiarizing, finger guns and everything. But yeah, he like it's apparently a collection of short stories. I really don't know that much about it, but I know that it's like titled Volume 1. So he's also kind of left it open for himself to kind of continue writing short stories. Cool. He also a long time ago, like after the book.
Sorry, do you know if it's like a continuation? Is it during the events of the inheritance cycle? Is it post, pre?
So it does continue some of Aragon's story after the 4th book of Inheritance. And I think it also like it includes like a story about Angela, the herbalist, who's like this really like weird, like strangely powerful character that isn't like her backstory isn't fully like understood. So like apparently there's like some stories about her. So I don't know the full like. I think the answer is I believe it's a bit of a mix of things that have happened after the story and maybe some like flashback style things that happened before or during.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
We'll have to see if that's on Audible or not.
Yeah, for sure. It was one of those things where it was like, why have we probably should have picked that up at some point.
Yeah. How do we miss this?
Yeah, because it was like right at the end of 2018. And then he has confirmed, I think a long time ago, that he planned on continuing, and that he has been like working on things. But he started another series. I saw it in a bookstore the other day and almost picked it up. But the first book is titled To Sleep in a Sea of Stars, and it's more of a sci-fi type of book with a female protagonist. And I don't know that much about it, but like I like read the back and read like the first like half of the first chapter or something like that while I was sitting in the bookstore. And I had other things on my list, and it was like a new book. It was, like if it had been used, I might have picked it up, but it was new and I'm cheap, so I didn't pick it up. But I believe he was planning to kind of like play that out before returning to Alagasia, the world where the story is told.
Very cool.
So yeah, more than I anticipated talking about for Aragon, but some like cool, some cool discussions. And I wanted to mention one other thing I had mentioned in the Discord, how I returned to the Expeditionary Force series, which is one that we joke about a lot as being like a funny sort of popcorn style novel series where he puts out a book every like 4 months and they're like pretty long. So like that
dude is crazy. Like I don't know how he does it.
Yeah.
Him and Sanderson can just form a power squad.
Right. I don't think he edits. Like I think he just writes it and then just prints it.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
And the book has
so many
like
typos in here.
Right. The story has like some like issues, but like you have to approach it and just be like, I'm just going to enjoy this. I'm not going to think about it critically.
It's just a fun one.
It's just a fun read. So that has continued. But the reason we were joking about it on the Discord is because I'd forgotten where I was. And so I picked up like, I was like, it's been like a year. And so like, I was like, I feel like I remember reading like book 9 or book 10. I remember I had ended on like an even number book. And so, because I read them in pairs usually. And it'd been like a year. And so I bought book 11. And it turns out I had ended on book 8. And he had put out 9, 10, and 11. By that time, and like 12 had like just released like a week before, and it had been like 1 year, and he put out like 4 books.
That's hilarious. Yeah, that's so funny.
Yeah, and so I was like, "What the hell is going on?" Like, yeah, I'm so confused.
I appreciate the warning in the Discord to tell me not to listen to that one.
Yeah. So, but I also wanted to talk about it's narrated by R.C. Bray, who did The Martian, and
yeah,
I think he must be one of the better like narrators who's working right now. I really, really enjoy him.
Yeah, he is phenomenal. He has such like a soothing voice and can convey the story so well.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's very like, he's so good with voices. Like he covers so many different types of voices, and his like female voices are pretty good. Obviously like that's one of the hardest things for male narrators to do. But he like, and a lot of male narrators, I think, have like one female voice, and he does a really good job of having like several different female voices, so that if 2 of them are talking, you can like easily pick them apart or like tell them apart. And there was a really funny line where like the main character Joe was like listening to an audiobook and he was talking about audiobooks, and you could tell that like the
so
author
meta.
had like, what's that?
So meta.
Yeah, exactly, so meta. And you could tell that the author had kind of like dropped him a line because he said something. The line was something like, he was talking about how much he loves audiobooks, and then he's like, oh, and I just love when there's like a good narrator. A good narrator can really bring a story to life,
That's awesome.
And so then like...
That's so cool.
Yeah, and so when he read that line, he like dropped out of like his voice for Joe, and he was like, a good narrator can bring a story to life, or something. It was just awesome. Like really, it was super meta. It was really funny. But the whole series really makes me laugh, and so I've been reading that as we go through unpacking and trying to settle into our new place. I can just throw that on in the background, and I don't have to pay that much attention to it, but it always makes me laugh.
So I think we've talked about this before, how the story continues to get crazier and crazier, and we're wondering if they've kind of saturated the peak level of craziness. Have they done that, or have they expanded on the craziness?
Oh, it's continuing to get pretty crazy, and it's still like I don't know
that's just insane.
I don't know where the end of this ramp is. Like I don't know what happens at the end of this.
Neither does he. So
I wonder if he does. Like I wonder how much he has this like written out. Like how much does he really have this like planned out?
So I've heard of like the writing like exercise where it's like the free flow writing where you just write, like you're just writing without thinking, and you just whatever comes to your mind you write. And I'm wondering if that's what he's doing.
Yeah,
that's how he's putting out 4 books a year.
Right, and it's just really good. But he, like I said, he's successful at it. I think I'm also running out of reasons to not read the Wheel of Time series, by the way, because like that one's like 10 books, and I've always not read it because it's 10 books long, and now I'm reading book 11. And so I think my excuse is like falling apart.
How long is each one of the Wheel of Time?
I don't know.
Books?
I've never picked it up. I mean, they don't like. I've seen the books. They don't look like super long. They look decent size, but they don't look like they're like 30 hours each or something.
You do that and let me know how it goes, and maybe I'll pick it up. I've heard that like every other one is really good or something like that. I don't know. So
yeah.
I'll be interested to hear what you think.
For sure.
It may actually just like the 10 books may just be as long as like the 5 book or the 4 books out for Stormlight Archives.
For like Stormlight Archives, yeah. I think the thing that will hurt me compared to like the Expeditionary Force series is that like I don't have to pay attention to Expeditionary Force, and I think I will have to pay attention to Wheel of Time.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
Anyways, we talked a lot about what's been on my mind. What has been on yours these last couple weeks?
Yeah, so I've been doing a lot of actually like listening to audiobooks and physically reading. So I've started picking back up some like physical books and like actually like using my eyes to take in stories, which has been weird.
Yeah, the absolute madman.
Yeah, basically I'm bored. That's what I'm trying to say. No, absolutely not. We had talked multiple episodes ago about the High Republic series for Star Wars.
Yep.
Where, it's taking 200 years before the events of the Phantom Menace, where the Jedi were at their prime.
Yeah.
And I had started that book, and I was enjoying the book. And I made it probably about 3/4 of the way through. Life got busy. I kind of put it down, and I never finished it. And so I picked it back up. I read that. I read the next book, which was Into the Dark. Yeah, so I've been reading that, and then there's a comic that follows that I've been reading through, which, like, I don't necessarily know if I'm enjoying it as much. Like, I don't know if I am enjoying the story. The characters I'm not super attached to. There are different main characters in both the Light of the Jedi and Into the Dark, which are the first 2 books of the series.
Okay.
But they're all kind of revolving around the same event where, like, this is first chapter, no spoilers. So basically a passenger vessel going into like the outer rim collides with something in hyperspace and like causes mass chaos all over the galaxy because it's spreading debris at light speed. And so it's kind of like how you're dealing with that. The first book was very much like dealing with directly with that conflict and how they're saving planets and everything, which was pretty cool. And then the second book was kind of like they shut down hyperspace, and so it's like these stranded Jedi basically on a different world and how they interact with everyone else who is stranded there with them. So I think I am enjoying the idea and the concepts more than I'm actually enjoying the story. I don't know if that is, I don't know if that's just me like getting back into reading. I want to put that out there as an option, right? Like I feel more immersed when I'm listening to an audiobook. I don't know if that is it. Assuming that is not it, the characters seem very kind of flat. And it just seems like I don't necessarily care what happens to them. I just want to learn more about the world.
Yeah.
So that's been kind of an interesting read. I'm going to continue reading all of them that come out just because like I think that the world building, you get to learn about new species. Like there's this giant snake Jedi, which is pretty cool. And so like there's like all these like really interesting concepts, but the story is not gripping me. But maybe like they're just doing a lot of like baseline and then they're going to ramp up.
Sure. Yeah, we kind of talked about that a little bit when we were talking about Kyoshi over the last fireside, right? Where that can kind of happen. Like it's a world that we love so much that it's so cool to see it like built into. that we can be a little forgiving, I guess, of a storyline that's like maybe not quite up to par.
Right. Yeah. Just skip past all like the storyline stuff and just tell me about the background.
Right. Ooh, kissing. Describe space to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. But kind of going off of the Star Wars High Republic, I had also talked about like 2 episodes ago, which seems, or I guess 3 episodes ago, which seems crazy because, you know, that was like 7 weeks ago. But like Bad Batch had just started.
Yes. Yeah.
And Bad Batch went from like the first 4 episodes. It's like, oh, cool. This is enjoyable. I'm reminiscing. I'm enjoying this. Like, this is kind of like an interesting extension to the Clone Wars, and it has definitely moved into like, this show is phenomenal.
Okay.
Like, I have been loving the Bad Batch. Like, everyone, like the character development has been great. It's been really interesting to see kind of the transition from the Republic into the Empire and kind of a little bit of the logistics there. And if you didn't listen to the previous episode, the Bad Batch is following Clone Force 99, which the special Clone Force unit that each has like enhanced abilities. Like, one's a really good tracker, one's just really strong. Some of them are really good with technology, and it kind of follows them along with another special clone, and we don't really know why she is special. Mm-hmm. And so her name is Omega, and she has like this awesome New Zealand accent. Mm-hmm. So it's just like, the accent is great. It's been really interesting. And then like the Kaminoans, like the people who do all the cloning, are like trying to get Omega back from the Bad Batch because the Bad Batch's inhibitor chips didn't work. So they're, you know, kind of resisting the Empire. There's a lot of conflict going on, and it's just like all of these background stories that we never were kind of exposed to, that you can see how it led to the Empire and what you see in A New Hope. But I cannot plug it enough. You don't have to see Clone Wars or Rebels, but I think it makes it so much better if you have seen Clone Wars. I know last time I had said if you had seen Clone Wars and Rebels, it makes it a lot better. There's like one scene that makes that is a lot better if you have seen Rebels. Other than that, it's really just kind of, it's an extension of Clone Wars.
Cool.
And so I highly recommend Clone Wars. So if you have seen Clone Wars, watch the Bad Batch. If you have seen Clone Wars, I don't know why you haven't watched the Bad Batch.
Yeah, Clone Wars takes some dedication to get through. So I'm sure that most people wouldn't mind watching like 4 extra episodes or something at the, you know, of Bad Batch.
Yeah, so this very much feels like a Clone Wars season 8.
Yeah, awesome.
I have a lot more that I've been doing, but we'll save those for a future episode. How about that?
Yeah, we have we're covering such a gap here that, you know, there's a couple things on my list that I didn't get to either. So, but these types of topics are great for, you know, for our fireside chats. So we'll leave a couple dangling out for the next one.
Exactly. All right. So on our last fireside episode, we had an icebreaker question that was submitted by Smalls that was talking about if you could pit together 2 people from fantasy or sci-fi to go into a head-to-head combat, who would you pick? So we threw out the question on our social media, and we got some responses, and so I wanted to run through a couple of those, give some shout outs to people who responded to that, and then also as we're going through it, I want to have like a sentence or 2 discussion on who we think would win the fight. Okay. I don't want to spend too much time on it because I feel like this could drag out to a full episode, and I do want to get to our topics. So yeah, so we got a couple of these. And I want to, let's just go through them. So 24 clubs, or, oh, there's a D in there. 24 C-dubs, 24. So this was an interesting one. He said he wanted to see Darth Maul versus Dumbledore. So we kind of talked about this, how different magic systems have, you know, counters inside their own magic system. So when you start to expand that gets a little bit difficult. But hot take, Dalton, real quick, Darth Maul versus Dumbledore, who do you think gets the crown?
I think you could make a legitimate argument that like a lightsaber could deflect an Avada Kedavra. You know, I think it could.
Yep. So I asked, and he's made that exact same point. So I'm glad that you brought it up. Yeah. So he said, I'm going to assume that the lightsaber can deflect spells. So
right. So now it's a good fight. With that in mind, now it's a pretty good fight. That's pretty good. I think I would give it to Darth Maul just based on like ability to kill, just based on like not ferocity, but like cruelty almost, like
cruelty.
Because he's always ambushing
survivability.
People, you know? Yeah, survivability.
Yeah,
like what are you gonna do?
He just never dies.
Yeah. What are you gonna do? Cut him in half?
Cut me in half?
Let's fucking go. Yeah. I think-
Okay, so you say Darth Maul. Okay.
yeah. Like, I don't know. Gandalf fell off of one building and he and he died. So
Yeah. Or Dumbledore.
yeah, I said Gandalf, didn't I? Dang it, I always do that. Yeah, Dumbledore fell off of like one building and he died. So
Yeah. Gandalf fell through like multiple different realms.
that's right. Yeah, Gandalf fell a very, very long way.
So you say Maul. I think Dumbledore has this one.
Think
I
so?
think that. But if the lightsabers can deflect, but I think that Dumbledore just has. I think he would be smart enough to do what he kind of did in the Department of Mysteries and start manipulating things around him
For sure.
and be able to create avalanches or something like that to just push Maul off long enough so that he could get in a sneaky shot. So
That's true. And I guess like push comes to shove, he can teleport, right? Like he can.
oh yeah, that's fair. He can just apparate.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, okay, all right, I'm out of here, and he just like zips
Yeah.
away, and then he can come back later if he wants to.
Nice. Okay. Well, yeah, that was a really good one. So then we actually got a lot from sheer boredom. I'm gonna pick two of them that I like. So the first one, okay, is one that he submitted on our Instagram. Then he immediately called me and we talked about for about 10 minutes. So he was very excited about this and he wanted to hear us talk about this one. But he said Cthulhu versus Godzilla, and so. So I'm interested to hear this because kind of one of the things that he was talking about is like what size is Cthulhu? Like we've seen him like big, but like the size of Godzilla. But then you've also seen Cthulhu like the size of like the world, right? So
Right.
that plays a factor.
Right. I feel
But
like
then you got Godzilla.
the whole thing is like that Cthulhu gets summoned to end the world. Like if he can't piss off, like end one pissed off lizard, like one pissed off Komodo dragon, like he's got no business,
Reptile.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's got no business being a world ender.
Yeah. One of the points that Sheer Boredom did bring up is that, Godzilla seems to have a new power each time that they like portray him in cinema. So
That's true.
like is a fully powered up Godzilla going to be able to take on a Cthulhu?
Right.
Yeah.
Depends on what the writers want to do.
Yeah, exactly. I did settle on Cthulhu. I think Cthulhu is, like you said, the ender of all things. So
Right.
I feel like if he can't kill a reptile, then the Arkham mythos is pretty screwed.
Right. It's pretty weak. Boo, go home. We're not scared of you anymore.
Exactly. All right, and then let's do one more from sheer boredom, and this one I think was my favorite, and we'll just end on this one. He had, who do you think would win in a fight, Ronald McDonald or Pennywise?
Wow. Well,
Yeah, I think Ronald McDonald wins this one hands down, right? Like you do not want to screw around with Mr. Ronald McDonald.
like
Dude has like billions of dollars backing him. Like he can buy whatever gear he needs. Pennywise just has like balloons. Like,
and really, like, what does a little kid want more? Like balloons or a Happy Meal?
yeah, and I guess like Pennywise like probably like tries to kill kids, where Ronald McDonald is 100% successful in killing whoever eats there. Obesity kills, however slowly it does.
Ronald plays the long game. Get learnt, Pennywise.
Yeah. If we like think about just kill count,
Right. just raw KD spread.
at this point, I'm just looking at the numbers, right? We're both engineers. We like math. We like the stats. I'm just
Right.
saying it's very lopsided.
It's very one way.
That's so funny.
It's really funny. Dude sold like 100 billion burgers or something. Like, what are you gonna do to him?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, yeah, those were great submissions. Really continue to send those in because we enjoy hearing and talking about the icebreakers and what people think about the icebreakers. But with that said, let's hop into battle scenes. Let's talk about fight scenes, battle scenes.
Yeah.
I guess, there's a little bit of a difference there. Like I think of like a fight as like less than 5 people or
Right,
so. Like
yeah.
you have head to head Brienne versus Jamie type fight scene.
Right.
Or like the battle scene is like the large scale, you
Yeah.
have troop movement type things.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how I pictured in my head. Were you kind of thinking along the same lines?
Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting. This is like one of the first kind of like book topics where we don't need to maybe define too much what we're talking about. Like I think it's
Right.
I think like you say that and people are like, oh, like I get what you mean. So then when I was trying to kind of bracket it in my mind, two things that came to mind quickly that I wanted to put in front of you. The first was size, like basically scope or scale of the battle, which is exactly what you were just talking about. Is this a one-on-one thing? Is it like a small group thing, or like a one person on a small group? Or are we talking about like, armies and some like very large scale? And that very significantly like affects the way that the author has to kind of like portray it to you, right? Like it is extremely hard to describe like large troop movements in a way that's like interesting,
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Like, and then the left flank was doing not very well, and so they charged the cavalry in, and it's like, well, okay, I'm not like super engaged in this. Whereas like on a one like single scale, like a one-on-one fight, you can usually like kind of tell what's going on in someone's head, and you can tell like the story a little bit more directly, maybe. So not to say one's better than the other, but just like something that is like kind of helping us define a little bit of what we're talking about. And then the other major thing would be like kind of types of battle. So is it a physical battle, like we said, like physical combat? What are maybe the consequences, or is it a like we're just having a karate fight, or is this like to the death? Is it like
what are the stakes?
What are the stakes? Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. Again, with types, like, 'cause we have like those would be like physical ones. It could be like some sort of like mental battle of wits maybe, or like minds directly challenging each other. It could be like magic. There's a lot of different ways that I guess the form of the battle can take. But those were two things that were, like I said, just kind of on my mind as I was kind of prepping for the episode. Is that similar to or different than how you were kind of framing this up?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Kind of almost spot on. The only thing that I kind of left out, but I'm really interested to talk about, is kind of like the battle of the wits. Like I didn't necessarily think about that when I was thinking of battle. So I do want to talk about that because I think that is very critical to the topic.
For sure.
But that's not something that I kind of prepared for. So I'm excited to hear what you have to think about that.
Yeah.
And kind of what you were saying about how large-scale battles don't necessarily always feel interesting, or it's harder for an author to compel the reader to get engaged with a large-scale battle. Like, right, the left flank does this maneuver. However, like we read a lot of books with large-scale battles in them, and I think that they're done well are very interesting, right? So kind of like what to you makes a large-scale battle something that you can relate to, may not be the right word, but like makes it interesting for you, right? That is not just the left flank. You don't have to understand military strategy to enjoy the book.
Sure.
But like kind of what makes a large scale battle interesting to you?
Yeah, I think narration style and just how the author chooses to approach it can be very, very important. I think a lot of those ones that we read that do have a larger scale battle are written typically from like a third person limited, and they're jumping from a lot of different perspectives, right? So they're able to tell the story of what's happening in the battle by jumping to different characters as they're kind of walking through these like very tense situations, and so it can kind of like help keep the reader like a little bit on the edge of their seat, right? If a author like backs all the way out to like an omniscient view, then that gets like really hard. Even like looking at like Tolkien, we talked about like narrative distance in the narration styles episode, and also just talking in the Lord of the Rings episode about this a lot. But he will zoom in on very specific characters and kind of their role in the battle. And if he's like zoomed out, it's because like some major change is happening, right? Like they're trying to like bomb the gates at like Helms Deep or something like that, or like
I was wondering how long it would take for Helms Deep to get mentioned. So
2 minutes. Count it. Yeah. Which actually, funny enough, like I enjoy reading Helms Deep more than I enjoy watching it. Like I found it more compelling in the book than I found it in like the movie. And I think it actually is like feels shorter in the book. Like I don't think it lasts as long as it feels like it feels like it lasts for fucking ever in the movie.
Yeah.
But
which I'm not opposed to.
Yeah.
Right. Like
yeah.
It's not a bad thing.
Right.
But yeah, I guess I don't have a take on if I like it better in the movie or the book. I just know I love it in the movie, and I've just seen the movie significantly more times than I've read the book. So,
yeah,
fine. I guess I'll go reread them.
Right, right. But he's using the battle to tell a lot of like character stories, right? It's just happening in this larger backdrop.
Yes.
But you see like Gimli and Legolas like start to become close, like really like very close in like Helm's Deep, and you see the whole like the scene, at least in the movie, of like like toss me, and he's like, but don't tell the elf or whatever.
Right.
And like Aragorn having to kind of like face these like he doesn't want to be a leader, but he's kind of like having to be a leader, right? And so there's like this whole conflict internal to him, also happening within like Theoden. Like all the important things that's being told is like all the stories of all the characters, not actually like the outcome of the battle, right? And that's like a really important distinction, I think.
That is exactly what makes me enjoy the larger fight scenes, is kind of like I just had in my notes a shifting perspective.
Okay.
So very, very quick shifting. And so the battle is not being described to you explicitly, as in the left link does that, but you can infer that through different characters' perspectives. And I really enjoy it when the different characters are on different sides or in different areas of the battle, so that you can kind of like get an idea of the large scale after you've finished the entire thing, and you can kind of almost like on the reread understand what is happening at like Blackwater Bay, like with Joffrey versus like the attack in the water in Game of Thrones, like the ships, like what's going on there, and then like with Tyrion. And so you get a lot of different shifting perspectives, and that's really what I enjoy, kind of putting the entire like battle plan together in my head rather than it being told to me.
Yeah. It's interesting to talk about Song of Ice and Fire in a battle scene sense, because actually I think a lot of times when a battle is happening, he like tends to kind of skip it. And not every time. Like there are a lot of battles that like are described, but like so much combat happens in Game of Thrones that he will often tell like the characters leading up to the battle and what they're feeling and experiencing, and then he will skip to like the end of it. And you'll have like the aftermath of the battle. There are some exceptions to that, the Battle of Blackwater Bay being one of them. But like you can look over the series and just see that he chooses actually to not tell the story. And I think it's because it can be confusing, it can be a little exhausting, right? Like battles generally take more detail and information than like general just like storytelling. So that it can just be very like tedious almost to like read through. But I really like when he does describe out battle scenes, specifically because not only do you have multiple characters involved generally, but you generally have characters on both sides involved.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
And a lot of times in a battle scene, you have like all the good guys and you're skipping between the stories of all the good guys, but like they're all fighting like some nameless, the orcs or whatever. And so like,
the baddies.
Yeah, the baddies on the other end who like they're probably going to beat. And so it's just really fun for me and interesting when you can hear like kind of not just the shifting perspectives, but actually like the opposing perspectives and what they're doing in response to each other and that sort of thing.
Oh yeah, no, that's a phenomenal point. I don't want to say my one exception, but the exception that I could think of and that I'm thinking of now is Ender's Game. And I think that I enjoy kind of like the description of the battle tactics in Ender's Game, because the book is focused on Ender through his eyes. So it's kind of being told through the eyes of a leader, through the eyes of a commander. It's set that perspective. So you know how he's like running through all the simulations or real battles,
right?
And how he uses that. And so it's, I'm not connected with any of the characters that are in the battle that he's commanding, which kind of, I guess like the entire book is built up to make me feel that way, right? Yeah. I'm not invested in the tactile, what is this ship doing? It's more, I'm reading this book to enjoy the strategic mindset of Ender.
It's a really good example actually, because Ender's Game is like packed. Like it's like every other chapter is a battle of some kind.
Right, yeah.
Or a fight of some kind. But every single one has like a point, I guess. Like it has, like if you like read through the book and you're like, I'm just going to take this battle out of the book, just like stripped it from the story, like there would be a massive gap, in like the storyline. Like there would be something that wouldn't make sense. And if that isn't true, if it's a battle that Ender doesn't either like learn something from or grow something from, or kind of like helps like kind of characterize who Ender is, then it is generally skipped, right? There's actually a lot of battles that happen that you don't hear about, where he says like, oh yeah, we just had all these battles and then such and such happened. It just takes like 2 sentences and it's like done, right? And so I think that's another good, like almost like as you're being kind of like critical as a reader, battles can be really cool and flashy and it can feel like everything's been building up like to this battle, but you should be at a point as a reader where you can say like, okay, if this was stripped out, if this was removed, like, am I really missing anything? And the answer should be yes. There should be some massive storyline thing that happens or some like very important character thing that happens. If that's not true, then it's kind of sloppy.
Phenomenal transition, Dalton. So I wanted to talk about kind of exactly that, and how battles can be used as a tool for character development, right? And they should be used as a tool for character development, right?
Yep.
Like the Battle of Mustafar. Like I want to understand kind of what Anakin's gone through. Like he's transitioned to the dark side, but then when he actually fights Obi-Wan Kenobi, both Obi-Wan and Kenobi and Anakin at that point go through a transition point, and like their entire stories change, right?
Yeah.
You know, you were my brother, Anakin. All of this, and like there's more than just like this flashy lightsaber fight on this volcano island, right? That is really cool, but what's more interesting is what the character development that takes place in those 10 minutes or however long it is jam-packed into that. Like I love it when authors use battle scenes to display or transition characters and grow them in their arc.
It's almost like a clash of, ideals, like a clash of morals and like a clash of like emotions.
Right.
It was like, or like what's actually happening, as opposed to like a clash of just like physical prowess. You can tell that they're both very emotionally involved in the conflict. And yeah, I think they give a chance for the author to kind of showcase like where the character is at, right? It can be sort of like a test or like a litmus test,
right?
Of like, here's how the character, like when things are stripped away and they're under stress and they like, here's kind of who they really are. Like those types of things can kind of like start to shine, I guess. And so like when books are written as like a filler book, and it's just like, this was I think one of my complaints about the inheritance cycle, is that large sections of several of the books are just like battle sequences, just like back to back. And it gets like really tedious where it's like, okay, it's almost like you didn't really know how to have a backdrop for the story. So you just kind of kept writing in battles, to try and just like move the story like to the end, I guess, to get to like the final boss fight or whatever. And it kind of lacks that transition of, okay, here is where Aragon, like the challenges that he has, and here's kind of the chance for him to be set up to either like succeed or fail in this like either moral dilemma or this character, self-actualization type trouble or decision that he's having to like grow through. And here's where he can kind of like either prove or fail in that, right? And that's not really what's done. It's kind of just like, oh, here's another battle that they go win sometimes. So
it feels like when I was younger, that's what I wanted. I just wanted the action. I wanted the fighting. I wanted that. And maybe like, he's writing as a younger author. Maybe that's, that's cool. That's exciting.
Yeah.
And as I'm growing, as I've been reading more books, I still enjoy that, but I want it to have a purpose. Like I don't want a battle for a battle's sake. I want it to advance the story. I want it to advance the characters. I want there to be moral dilemmas inside the battle. And so I think that is kind of what is lacking in a lot of the battles in the inheritance cycle.
And I think of, in terms of like battles on the other hand that are done well in that regard, I think of the Pendragon series, which has again like 10 books. Yeah. And so there are multiple battles because it's kind of a natural like climactic point often is that there's some sort of conflict and a rush and a sense of urgency, and sometimes that can like relate as like a physical battle, and that does happen in Pendragon. But each book is a really important like characterization point for Bobby Pendragon, and like a really important like growth point, and he's also like not afraid to let him fail at some of those, right? Like there are a lot of like ups and downs in that series where he like has a chance, not even just failing at the battle like in the sense of, oh, he just like didn't beat the guy in a sword fight or whatever, but like actual like failures of character where he made a selfish decision where he should have made a sacrifice, or he like failed in like to like foresee something that should have been obvious, or that he should have had it, or he just made a wrong decision. The battles and the fights kind of give him the opportunity to do that, and give him the opportunity to kind of like grow the character, so that by the time you get to like book 10, he has this like wealth of experience, and you feel like, wow, this character has really grown. He's really developed over the course of this story.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting example, especially because you do feel like you are growing with Bobby. And for a lot of the series, he is not a good fighter. Right?
Yeah,
he's clever.
Kind of a wimp.
he understands like social, but like, he's going to get his butt kicked every single time he goes out for a fight. And so I think that's kind of interesting, because like the fights that he does have when he is this wimpy kid really do develop that character and kind of give him this like hard-headed determination of, I need to go, I need to do this, I need to do that, and like I'm going to play to my strengths at that point. So yeah, we kind of been talking about the large scale, and we've transitioned into like kind of the small skirmishes or like the 1v1 fight scenes. So What do you like about a small scale, like maybe like a 1v1 or just like a couple of people fighting? What are some of the things that you like in those types of fights?
Yeah. A lot of times it gives more room for the author to kind of like pay attention to a single person's perspective. Like we said, with those large scale battles, you can get overwhelmed by details and information because there's so much happening that the author has to like describe. It can become exhausting to the reader and it becomes really tedious and dull. And so when you kind of remove that requirement and it gets down to like just one person, the author can really start to tell like their experience. They can tell like what they're feeling and thinking, and so those like emotional decisions that they are having to make as a result of the fight, they can kind of like talk you through that, and you can see it a lot more clearly. They also they have access to a lot more of the individual person's senses. They can give you a sense of smell, and they can give you even like a sense of taste, right? That they can taste the sweat and blood mixture on their lips or whatever. Like they can give you some really good kind of bring you into the moment a little bit more than that like overarching like 10,000 foot view of like a battle scene. It kind of fails to do that for you. Most of the time it gives them an opportunity to just get the reader really, I guess, keyed in and involved in whatever the active kind of tension point and storyline point that's trying to be made as a point of the fight, like to develop this very specific development point for the character that can become a very strong emotional tie, because it's such an intimate like telling of the story in like a 1v1 fight, I guess.
Yeah, that's very true. The other things that I kind of like about that is I feel more connected with these fights that are 1v1, and I think that actually kind of has to do more with the medium that I'm observing the story in. And so like if I am listening to an audiobook and they're describing a large scale battle, I tend to not have as much engagement with that. I don't tune in as much. I'm kind of like meh. Whereas if it's a 1v1, like I'm in it, I am ready to listen, I am excited about it. Whereas like kind of maybe not the opposite, but it's definitely like it's more balanced in like a TV series or a movie. Like a large scale battle I'm much more interested in when I can like kind of observe the everything and kind of use more of my senses to understand everything, because I think it does just take more comprehension to understand everything that is going on. And so in that sense, I prefer larger scale battles in cinema, or maybe just like reading a book in that sense, where I can go back and reread some of the details rather than an audiobook where, I missed that. I probably don't need to know that anyways.
Yeah. I like too that the kind of the stakes are more, it feels like they can be more fluid. Like in a large scale battle, it's like, okay, like we're here to kill each other. Like, all right, let's do this, and it's, in a one-on-one, there's opportunities for mercy and there's opportunities for like discussion. And, I'm thinking of Red Rising, where there's a lot of individual fights where like Darrow actually can like take a minute to like have a discussion, even in the middle of the fight. Or at least you can like hear his internal dialogue on it a little bit more clearly. You can hear his like hesitation for whatever reason. The fight of one single person just feels like so much more personal, and that's a harder decision for a lot of characters to make. And I also like that they can tune in on the opponent. There can be a lot more development around the opponent, right? Whoever the villain is, or just the opposition, even in that fight, can be, again, not a nameless face, but it can be someone who has built up over the story, or it can be someone who like doesn't have a lot of development, but it can become personal over the course of the fight, even, right? He can. There's a couple examples of that in Red Rising. I can also think of a couple from Aragon, where like at the end of the fight, all of a sudden this person is a character, right? And you kind of like learned about them in the fight. That's almost their introduction.
Yeah.
But then at the end, they're like a recurring character at that point.
Yeah. Oh, I like that point. Yeah, because on the large scale, you don't really get that, right? Like I can't connect with the large scale opposing force, whereas I can connect, maybe not relate to, but I can connect and understand one opponent, and understanding how they're reacting to the main character who is fighting them. Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, so I mean, we've been talking about all of this like in the battle, but I think that another reason why I like battle scenes so much, other than like the awesomeness of the fighting, the lightsaber fights, the blowing up of the Death Star, is kind of like the ramifications of the actions in the battle carry out through the survivors, right? Like survivors,
absolutely.
I guess
it does too for the people that don't survive. Yeah, they're really impacted.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. That is very fair. But kind of, I think battles are so exciting because they're it is such a high stake environment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like this
Yep.
is going to probably change the lives of the people inside the battle, for good or for bad. And so I think that is another interesting point that I kind of wanted to discuss with you is what are some of the other kind of ancillary things other than just kind of the cool action shots that really draw you in or make you remember a battle or promote battles to a specific battle to like, this was an awesome fight.
Yeah. That's a really good question. There's like a couple things that come to mind, so I'll mention one, and then maybe we can do a little back and forth here. When you asked that question, one of the first things that came to mind is the Battle of Five Armies in The Hobbit.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Which I love. Like, I think it's such a cool, like, well written battle because you don't hear very much about it, right? Because it's basically like it's following up this big battle where like Smaug like comes down and he's like burning the village and the dude shoots him and whatever, and it's like, okay, that's like this big battle that happens, right? But then like greed takes over and all the five armies are like, oh, we got to fight over like this treasure hoard that's in the mountain, and Bilbo kind of like sits on like the mountainside. I think he even like has the ring on, like I think he might be invisible, and he's just kind of like watching all of this like play out, and he's just kind of like, he's so like taken back by it, you know, he's just like, why is this like, why all this violence? Like, why is this happening? You know? And so it's a battle that is like totally pointless, you know, not pointless. There's a big treasure hoard, but they're
but effectively pointless.
Effectively pointless,
right? Like, I mean, it's over treasure, right? Which
right.
is non-lasting.
Right. Exactly. And so the battle feels so powerful because it's told in a way that it's like not a glorified thing. Like, it's not this glorious moment where the dwarves like win over the dragon or whatever. It's this kind of like failing of everyone to resolve the issue, like, peacefully. And instead of, it's like, yes, it's treasure, and like, yes, money is important, but like a bunch of people die, right? Like, it's a huge battle of five different armies, and like all of these sentient beings die, and it's like, was that really worth it? And Bilbo he's like coming from Hobbiton, like he's just kind of, this is like the last almost like killing of his innocence,
right?
Of like, wow, this is awful, you know? And so I think it just strikes like a really powerful chord.
One of the other things that I kind of wanted to talk about of like ramifications of a battle or kind of consequences of a battle, not necessarily to the world, but to kind of a meta sense for the reader, is something that I think Sanderson does really well, is that he will open a book with a battle using magic. And a lot of the times, like, so I'm thinking the Stormlight Archives. So the opening scene of the Stormlight Archives is Seth Zunsun Villano is kind of using all of this magic. You know, he's running on walls. He's kind of making things fall in the opposite direction, and like as a reader you're confused, but it kind of puts you into the perspective of who Seth is fighting, because they are also confused. And so I think it's a really interesting way to introduce magic, and I think that there are other examples of introducing magic through a battle. So like, you know, you go into a battle thinking that it's very one lopsided, and then one side ends up having this huge advantage that you didn't necessarily see. And so like, that's how one person can take on an entire king's guard and assassinate a king. So and it's just like a really cool introduction of other ways to build out the world. Or magic in that sense. Yeah,
I think we talked in the Mistborn episode that the book doesn't necessarily like start with a magic fight, but the magic system is kind of introduced through a magic fight that's like a couple chapters later.
Yeah,
and I think you're right. It's a really good way to just kind of like highlight, specifically in a hard magic system, like, hey, here are kind of like the rules and how like people kind of use them. And because actually, like, now that I'm thinking about that fight in Mistborn, from a storytelling perspective, you could entirely strip that fight out. They're like the first one where you really get the magic shown to you. We could pull that out, and like from a storyline perspective, it could be one sentence. It could be like, oh yeah, this guy went and did this thing, and here was the result. The only reason that it's written in is specifically to introduce you to the magic system. Like, that's the point of the fight.
Yep, and it's exciting.
Yeah, and it's cool.
Right, it's exciting to learn about the magic system, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I think we are both kind of landing on the sense that while we enjoy the fights and while we enjoy the battle scenes, what we really enjoy about these are the consequences or the falling action after the fights as well. Is like, what are the characters going through? How is this affecting the characters? What is this doing to the story, so that we can progress the story, so that characters are put through these moral decisions and interesting decisions, which is like I kind of said earlier, and I think I want to talk about this really quick before we wrap up, is like kind of like the non-physical fights. right? So
Oh, yeah.
these happen all the time, right? So like the Battle of Wits, right? So I'm thinking Princess Bride.
Yeah.
Right? Like, with the poison, right?
Right.
Sitting across the table. So that is a battle, right? It's not
Yeah.
a physical hand-to-hand fisticuffs battle, but it is a battle. And so I didn't necessarily prepare a lot for this. So I want you to talk to me a little bit about this, and then we can have a little bit of dialogue about this kind of interesting psychological battle.
Yeah, I think it can lead to a lot of really interesting storytelling. Like when I answered the icebreaker question back in the Fireside episode, one of the first things that I brought up was like Tyrion from Song of Ice and Fire, or also Paul Atreides from the Dune series, in that most of what they are doing as a fighter or as a battle is that they're commanding, right? They are scheming and they're coming up with ideas. You could also you could extend that to, like, I'm thinking like Locke Lamore, from Lies of Locke Lamore, where it's like there are like battle scenes, but mostly what he's doing is he's like playing out a plan, right? In some sense, what he's actually doing is it is a battle of wits. Like it's something he's acting out physically, but it's only because he like had the time and the space to like come up with this like plan, and you're like as a reader seeing that play out, and you're seeing him kind of like best his enemies through his cleverness and his mental capacity. But I think the reason that I like them so much is, first of all, that they kind of like make you as a reader like think outside of the box, because I'm not a sword fighter, I'm not a magic user, but I can think. That's like the one thing that I can do alongside.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. And so it's kind of like it challenges you as a reader to be like, would you have thought of that? So like there's that part, kind of the puzzle part. But I also think that they can have maybe like, we're talking about consequences now, like maybe bigger, more intense consequences of, oh, okay, I'm the commander. Like, did I come up with the right strategy? Because this has like a societal impact. For one, like it's going to affect like a lot of people culturally, like coming out of the battle, but it's also like I'm commanding a lot of people to like go die or whatever, right? Like it's not just me. I'm not just going to enter a fight where I may have like some physical or even like mental trauma, PTSD type thing, like, but I may be actually know that I'm causing other people like physical and mental trauma, or like just ordering their deaths, and like that's awful, but I have like full
the
responsibility.
moral implication for
sure. There's this huge moral implication. That's a good way to put it. And the stakes are just like, they can be like really elevated, even in the Battle of Wits, like one of them dies, right? But but for the most part, I think what I was thinking of is like not necessarily like a one-on-one Battle of Wits, but like a Battle of Wits like commander to commander, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I think that these are all great points, and we have so many different types of battles to choose from. So I gotta ask, right? Like it's kind of like my thing now, I guess. Like, what is your favorite battle scene? And I think I'm going to turn this one into also kind of a Instagram/Discord receive answers, because I'm also interested in everyone else's. But what is your favorite battle scene in sci-fi fantasy?
Yeah, and why?
Yeah.
I don't know if I can truly pick a favorite. But I wanted to bring up one here with this question that we haven't talked about yet, which is Children of Time, which I've talked to you about this book, and you have yet to read it, to my extreme disappointment.
I am sorry.
And so it's like the end of the book. Like I can't describe details of it, but if you remember the concept of the book, the concept is that basically humanity introduces a virus to a planet that is intended, and then they are intending to introduce like monkeys to this same planet, and their goal is to try to basically recreate humans. The virus is intended to like kind of guide evolution, and they're kind of trying to like kind of create new humans in a vacuum to like see if they're, I don't know, basically any different, I guess, and to see if they're better. Some bad things happen in like human society. There's this, like stuff breaks out. Anyways, the experiment goes awry. The virus gets introduced, but the monkeys do not. And they had already kind of built this planet to have like an Earth-like biosphere. And so it's kind of like, okay, what develops, what becomes sentient as a result of this virus, which is now just able to kind of like manipulate different species that are like lower life forms that are on this planet. And then when they interact with humans like thousands of years later, where they are sentient and have a culture, like the clash of those two. And for the long time in the book, you're like, okay, this is a square block and a round hole, right? There's just not a way for these two to kind of like come together. And I really like the resolution of the book. Like you can't really say if they like come together or not, and that's not why it's good or bad of whether or not they do, but it was a solution that I like, maybe not solution isn't the right word, but it was a conclusion that I had not thought of And that was really cool because there were both good sides on each one. And so this final conflict, there were characters on both sides of it that you were like fully invested in, who were like active in the story, you know, and you got to kind of like see it played out from both sides, and neither one of them was a bad guy. So I just thought it was very well constructed, very well thought out, very well executed. I really liked the conclusion of that book a lot.
Okay. Maybe I'll read it at some point. Okay. No. Yeah.
I was going to like tape it to like your ceiling, just like one page, like the first page is open, and then like the next day.
The first page. Then when you come over the next time, the second page. And
yes, exactly.
I'll get through it eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. No, I'm glad that you picked that example because it's not something that I have interacted with. And so that I guess like I don't know if you're playing like 4D chess and this is how you're going to get me to read the book or not, but like it's
he's
kind of
on to
working.
us.
He's on to us.
Abort.
Yeah. So for this question, I tried to narrow it down, but I just wanted to mention 3 because I cheat.
Sounds like you did a great job narrowing down.
Yeah, no, actually, so there are 7 team.
You kept less than half,
no.
So that's good.
Okay, so yes, I want to mention 3. I will tell you my favorite. I'll leave that one for the last, but it's a spoiler, so I can't necessarily like talk about it too much.
Okay.
So one that I wanted to definitely talk about was the Battle of Isengard, Osgiliath. I just love Ents, and I love Merry and Pippin, and so that one just like I don't think it's like a super like interesting, like, you know, strategic battle. I love all the characters in it, and I just love the idea of it.
Yeah.
So I wanted to mention that one. The second one that I wanted to mention was the fight between Avatar Aang and Fire Lord.
I got chills when you said Avatar Aang. At that point, I got chills.
Yeah. The ending of that series is just amazing. Like,
yeah, for sure.
Now I have chills. Dang it.
Yeah.
But I think I like that battle so much. One, it's just beautifully animated. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
It's phenomenal to watch, but also it feels like from almost the like first couple episodes, you know that the series is leading to this climactic event, and you can see how all of Aang's training throughout the 3 seasons of Avatar culminate into this one fight. And I just think that is just really well done, and it's just such a great fight. And then my favorite fight, the last one that I want to mention is the fight. This is not a spoiler. The fight between Kaladin in the Stormlight Archives and Szeth.
Okay.
Which we had mentioned earlier. Okay, so I like it for multiple reasons, but one of the main reasons that I really like it is that both characters, you've seen stories from their perspective, and so you know exactly why each one of them is fighting. And 2, like, the only thing that I can really say without spoiling is like riding the storm, and I just think that was just so cool. And so if you read the book, you probably know what I'm talking about, but like it was just like this awesome battle scene, which we didn't really like cover, but like the terrain, like they're literally just like riding a storm front and fighting, and it's just like it was so epic that I think that's probably my favorite scene. All right, so I think that's gonna do it for us for the topic of battle and fight scenes. I am gonna post the question in the Discord and in Instagram to just kind of get a feel for what your favorite fight scenes are. So I'm excited to hear your answer to that question. But the other ways that you can contact us, we do have a significant following on YouTube now. So if you want to join in that, you are more than welcome to subscribe to our YouTube channel. But really, that is not the best way to contact us. Really, the best way is Instagram and or Discord. So all of those links are going to be in the show note. Reach out to us, talk to us. We love talking with you guys. So I think that's all I had to talk about. That's all for you? So
that's all for me.
Man, I really enjoyed, diving into a topic again. So this was a lot of fun. I'm excited to do some more. So
for sure.
Cheers, buddy.
Cheers.